Hey, folks. We are live now. So, in today's session, we are going to walk through our Vanta for compliance event. I'm just working with the current stream. It's not yet gotten live on LinkedIn. I'm just checking if I have some issue for some reason. Just give me a second. Yep, we are live. I can see us on screen and everything is up and running. So, in today's session, we are covering Vanta for compliance. And as usual, we always have hiccups at the beginning of the stream. Uh, for today's session, we have a couple joining us in who's replaced Farooq now. Uh, so we thought we should get a new face so that we have someone who talks more about compliance and asks us all those right questions to give us all these insights. So, couple, go for it.
Hey, hi. Hey, thanks, Samit, for the introduction. Hey, hi, I'm Kapil Goyal. I'm just working as senior DevOps engineer here. Yeah, and this is something excited for me as well because it's something a new thing. So everyone is talking about in the market right now, the compliance, right? What exactly it is about and how it will be. So I have multiple questions for that, of course. So I'm eager to learn as well as contribute. So yeah, thanks for that and having a replacement
Absolutely.
of Farooq. But now Farooq is not replacing here. But yeah, that's something
Uh,
here.
yeah. So today we basically
I think Amit, you are on mute. Uh,
how about now?
yeah, it's good now. I'm able to hear you.
So today we want to talk about compliance. Why are we using compliance? How we can go about simplifying the entire process by using additional tooling like Vanta, and why do people even concern themselves with compliance? Why does anyone care about compliance? So I think a couple just before the call we were also chatting about uh, exactly the same thing, right? Where you were asking me why are we using compliance? We have all our security scanning, we have all our tools like snic or any of the other security tools which are there. We use Bitwarden for password management. Why do we need any of this compliance? And one more thing to add to the list. And so today we'll walk through why that is handy. In our case, generally in terms of just talking about ISO, so Odyssey Cloud is ISO certified, and the reason we went through that process is it helps the business mature very quickly. So if you lack certain processes for your entire way of management, whether it's your security management. So ISO is mainly for covers everything under the security framework, and how you have processes, whether you have backup processes, you have DR strategies. It covers all those different topics. And why this helps massively is when you want any of those frameworks, you want to ensure that your company is maturing while going and pitching their solutions to clients. So, for example, when we went to our different clients this time with an ISO certification, you could see a very big shift in the way people dealt with us. So they had this confidence when we showed them the certification, saying that, hey, okay, we know that you all take care of your security. We know you all have policies in case of any sort of uh, issues. If so, for example, if there is ever a failure in terms of your databases or any such thing, there is a DR strategy we have involved. If there is any failures within our systems, we have a BCP we have a BCP plan in place, where what do we do if the system fails, what happens couple if your internet gets disconnected, how does the client's
Sorry,
business continuity.
but you know, I think we are not live on LinkedIn. That's something for this.
Did Farooq mention we are not live?
Yeah, not showing the LinkedIn.
uh,
We just got the message.
e- which I am trying to see
It's
this.
live. It's live
Just
now.
okay. I did not change anything right now.
Maybe
So I can see that LinkedIn might be having some hiccups for the entire thing. So
possible.
I can see the event when I go onto LinkedIn, but where it says to click on go live, it doesn't have that option anymore. So either way, as we were talking, right? Like, why is compliance important? Why does what does compliance like ISO mean? What does compliance like SOC 2 mean? And who cares about this? So if we just talk about ISO, it is accepted worldwide. Whether it's Europe, whether it's US, whether it's Asia, everyone knows about ISO. It's a worldwide accepted framework which is there. And what does compliance mean is it's nothing but a framework which gives you guidance on what particular policies you should have in place, if there is any practices you should have, and in case of failures, what procedures should be there. So if, for example, I have a home office. Do I ensure my computer has a proper password in place? Do I ensure that I have a UPS backup system? If there is a failure in terms of if you couple your internet gets crashed, do we have a backup plan of, you know, I can go in and for the time when you're not available, I provide those services and I'm available, or some other developer from the Odyssey Cloud team is available during that time. So basically, it's the entire process where you provide them all these different guidance principles, etc., which is providing a level of assurance to your customers, saying that yes, you have plans for disasters, you have plans for failures, you have plans for hacks, you have processes in place of how to mitigate them, you have sufficient security measures in order to ensure you're following best practices. You have sufficient practices of your privacy policy, you manage data of your clients as well as your employees very safely, and ensure that you encrypt all your data, etc. So it's ensuring there is an external team which comes and validates that you have all these policies in place and all these uh, practices in place. Now, SOC 2, on the other hand, is something which is required mainly by financial organizations. It is mainly for security purpose, but it is mainly on the financial end where most financial clients are looking for SOC 2. It talks more about how you manage your end users' data. So it
Okay.
ensures that you have a proper data security in place, as well as you have a very good security system in place. Um, so it mainly concentrates on that, whereas uh, the ISO is more generic in terms of covering a lot more topics, not just security. So that
So is
is
there
just covering that part.
so is there a way like the organization need to identify the which certificate they need to use? Like for SOC or an ISO, like depend upon what the organization is about. So like if it's a financial organization, then they ideally go ahead with the SOC too. Otherwise, with respect to if it is an IT firm or something with respect to IT organization, then ISO is much better to go ahead with that line, right?
Not necessarily. You might actually want to go for both of them. And the reason being, who are your clients? So if I want a financial organization as my client, they look at me more reassuringly if I have ISO and SOC 2 rather than I have only ISO. Is it better to have ISO than to not have any compliance? 100%. So there are a couple of clients who I went to, whereas all the other vendors had to go through more rigorous assessment. The advantage for me was because I had ISO, automatically it was kind of a tick there. So no one had to go and dig out, hey, what do you have? What are your procedures for this? What are your procedures for that? Because those procedures which companies expect from you are already covered in ISO. So that is where there is an advantage of having some sort of compliance like ISO or SOC 2. uh, in terms of security and data security, SOC 2 is more rigorous than ISO, but generically ISO covers a lot more breadth.
So, is there any specific procedure to have that certified for SCOC or ISO, right? So, like, what will be the timelines for how we get this certified with that
It
thing?
depends
And
from company to company. It depends on what's the maturity level of the company. So if from day one, so the reason I was saying as a startup, it is actually quite beneficial to go down this path is because it introduces a level of maturity into your company, which is not necessarily something procedures you're going to have in place without those compliance. You may have thought about some of those procedures, but you wouldn't cover every single aspect of it. But on the other hand, once you have to go down that path, you have to ensure that you have all those procedures and policies in place, as well as controls in place as to if something happens, then how do you manage that then? Or how do you ensure that this particular issue does not happen? How do you ensure that people are changing their password on a regular basis? You put a password rotation policy. How do you ensure that people are using 2FA? You enforce 2FA into your company, like things like that. So this is where you have to go through a specific process, and you ensure that you have those policies and those rules in place. Now comes a tool like Vanta, and Vanta simplifies this. So that is where today we'll walk through Vanta, why Vanta actually simplifies this entire process for you, and how it can make this whole compliance for ISO, SOC 2, GDPR. So if you're in Europe, then GDPR is a very big thing where you have to ensure the data is not leaving the European region. You're only taking some sort only specific information and nothing additional from your users who are using you, as well as you are not necessarily, if a user contacts you and says you need to purge all my data, you need to ensure you have policies into place in order to do all of that. So this is just makes that whole process very easy and simple. So now I'm going to first walk through the architecture diagram of uh, how Wanta looks on a very high level, in a simplistic manner, and then we'll walk through a sandbox. And that being said, we are Wanta partners, so we help our customers across various means and basically implement best practices of Wanta, simplifying the entire process of going for whatever sort of framework you're looking for. And we'll walk through that entire process now. So as you can see here, I have basically mentioned on a high level how the integration takes place. So if you have different cloud providers, Wanta ensures that you can integrate these providers into your compliance system. And along with that, you can also introduce additional vendors that you might have. So you have a option of managed vendors. You not only ensure that you are following the best practices, you can also ensure and enforce that the vendors who you use are compliant with all the frameworks. Why is that important? It's important if you want to be SOC 2 compliant and your vendors are not SOC 2 compliant, that can in turn make you SOC 2 uncompliant, because your data might be stored in certain locations. Like if you're using a database and they are not SOC 2 compliant, then technically your data could become uncompliant or non-compliant. So you want to ensure that all your vendors are also SOC 2 compliant when you're going down this path. And then we have the Vanta platform, which basically does real-time monitoring for all your different infrastructure and integrations. As well as far as your vendors are concerned, you can upload their SOC 2 audit reports. So audit reports have findings and mention if there are any issues within the findings or if there are any remediations required in order to ensure that your vendors are compliant. And finally, you have the team and how they can interact with the platform. So
Okay.
most of the time, generically speaking, you previously would just directly interact with the Vanta platform. You would have a security team and compliance team who would especially work on this, go into all these setups and scan the different frameworks, etc. You would ensure that compliance is you would ensure that certain framework is being followed, such as SOC 2 or ISO. And along with that, you would also ensure that your vendors are compliant by uploading their SOC 2 reports, and Wanta would scan them, and then you have to answer certain security questionnaires, which you can either send your vendor representatives or you could potentially fill out yourself, depending on when you need these details by.
Right. So I have one question. So like
Yeah.
how you will integrate this Vanta platform, right, with your organization, like or an infrastructure that you are checking, if it is compliance or up to mark or not.
Yeah. So that is where the integration takes place. So if you can see here, you have cloud infrastructure. So similar to
Mhm.
cloud infrastructure, they have more than 300 odd integrations. What does that mean? It means that they have certain API keys or tokens which you configure into Vanta, and that allows it to talk to these additional systems. So whether it is GitHub, whether it is GitLab, whether it is you have a vendor like Slack, or you are using Google Cloud, it integrates with all of these, it reads it real time, and using those, basically by reading all these details, it can come back to you and say these particular vendors are compliant, this is what is missing, and this is what you need to do. Now imagine having to do that without Vanta, where you need to go and research which parts of your infrastructure or your vendors or your applications are non-compliant, making a note of that, then going back and approaching this vendor, and or in certain cases it's your own configuration. So for example, in AWS there is some configuration missing, or GCP configuration is missing, you need to go and configure that. But imagine keeping a track of all of these different things, and this is not just one vendor. Now I was just giving an example of GCP, but what happens if you have GCP, you also have Microsoft Teams, along with that you're using Slack as well for some of your external clients. Then after all of that, you're storing all your repositories in GitHub, you use MongoDB for your database. Now, as especially in today's day and age where it's so microservice oriented, and startups use a lot of SaaS vendors in order to scale, they need to be across so many different vendors in order to make sure they are all compliant and they are following the appropriate practices to continue to stay compliant. It would be very difficult for them. But now, in this case, OneTab helps you simplify this whole process rather than trying to make a list of all these different things and all. You kind of get automated updates, potentially even real time updates. And that really helps with the whole process.
Okay.
So, you were just talking about this infrastructure, right? Like, and previously, as I was saying, you're doing it from the UI. Now, where this changes, and I am really excited about this because I recently helped one of our clients um, with their SOC 2 findings. So I basically helped them remediate some of the SOC 2 findings and fix it up. But we used Vanta MCP for this. And it was so game changing, where processes, sorry about that, I'm recovering from a cold. Uh, So where processes would normally take a lot of time, like you would have to go back to the compliance team, the security team, they would give you certain details, validate this information. The MCP server is open source. All I had to do was clone it, and then I extended that MCP server. By extending the MCP server, you now have access to whatever APIs Wanta exposes, you have access to it all. You can do whatever you want, whether it is creating asset repositories, whether it is ensuring that your security questionnaires are up to date, everything. You can basically work on all of it. Anything that is supported by the API, the MCP server can be extended to support. And that is where I found it game changing. Like you can answer all these questions really fast. You can create asset inventory frameworks very fast. Um, like the whole process was much faster than where it would normally take potentially 2 months or 3 months. We managed to deliver the whole thing within less than a month's time, to ensure that they have all the details, all the remediations are in place, all the validations are done, etc., for their SOC 2 compliance.
Right. So using this MCP server, so like you have access to more APIs which MCP is not providing, I guess, right? What you said, so that you
Yes,
will completely able to use the Avanta using MCP server. So you can
yes.
add some customized questionnaires as well as depend upon the organization if they want to check few more things compared to what they want or they.
So you would be limited to things which Vanta supports. As in, if I'm trying to update Vanta specifically, you have
Hmm,
to. It has to be something which is allowed by the API of Vanta. Otherwise, you cannot do it using the Vanta MCP. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it at all, because there are ways and means where you would be able to potentially leverage Cloud Computer. So Cloud Computer can actually view your screen and make changes based on that. So you could use tools such as those, but right now we just wanted to stick to Vanta's MCP server and we leverage that. So we only are using whatever Vanta APIs are
providing
exposed.
right now.
So we could extend
Okay.
the MCP server they had. So they provide a very good framework in terms of, okay, this is how we have created the MCP server. It does only 1, 2, 3 items, but you can go and extend that same MCP server to perform a lot more things. So it does not support asset inventory by default. We extended the Vanta MCP server to support that. It does not support getting not only asset inventory when I say cloud assets, but also you Vanta is monitoring all the computers in order to make sure that everybody has good quality passwords in place, MFA in place, etc. So while monitoring all of this, we could basically ensure that we can extract all of this information and create an asset register, which normally would mean that you would have to export it, validate it, etc. Whereas it was really quick and easy to do this whole process of extracting every single asset from all the different components that are there, which we'll further walk through.
Good.
And all
Thanks.
of it is done in English. So imagine if your auditor comes in and he has this question, right? Like, okay, where is this? Where is your asset register? What are you storing in your asset register? How many how many computers do you all have? How many servers do you all have? You, where previously you would have to remember which document it's stored in, etc. Now you can easily talk to the MCP server and ask it to point you in the right direction and provide you the information in a very simplistic manner. So business value is massive. It really fast forwards the whole compliance setup. And I think the main part I personally think about SOC, not SOC, just compliance, whether it's ISO, whether it's SOC, it helps the business mature very fast. So after you're gone from that startup phase to try and become a more mature organization, this compliance helps you ensure that you're following all certain practices and frameworks in order to ensure that you can basically go to the next level. It helps you mature as a business and mature your practices as a business.
So
But
once,
this is basically how it looks.
yeah, I have
Sorry,
one
go ahead.
question. Yeah. So suppose once the one Vanta identify one of the issues, right, with respect to security or anything, it will be available. It will be you will be able to see on the dashboard, right? The Vanta UI, whatever will be integrated.
Hmm.
So how it will alert a team to fix it up as per the timelines, and how it will be go ahead then, and after fixing what it will get updated, how it will, or it will continuously monitor so that way it will get updated on that. So just give
Yes,
some ideas on
it,
that
it
and how.
does. Yes, yes, it does continuously monitor, so it would
Mm-hmm.
be able to automatically update. The way alerting would be managed would be depending on configuration. So you could configure it to send you email alerts on a weekly basis, monthly basis. You have a fixed timeline where your policy renewal is up, where you need to ensure that by that time you are following certain practices in order to ensure that you are compliant with the framework. And it basically tells you whether you're in line with those practices or you're lacking certain um, controls or policies, etc., for ensuring that you are compliant. So when I share my screen next and I show you the controls which are currently available, it will start making a lot more sense. So I'm just going to now go to Vanta screen. So this is a Vanta sandbox, but this is pretty much how Vanta looks when you're an end user. So it basically tells you on the roadmap how far you are from your compliance. So you once you mention that I want to be compliant with this particular framework, it will tell you, are you there yet or are you far away? So it'll tell you how well you're in scope. So here you can see all systems are in scope, all assets are in scope. What is your control completion and what is your evidence completion? So whenever you are applying for a framework or a compliant framework, you have to provide evidence that you're following these best practices that you talk about. So this is where you ensure that the evidence needs to be uploaded. So when you go into your frameworks, you will see all the different options of compliance which are available. And you don't need all of this. You will pick and choose based on what is applicable to your need. So whether it is ISO 27017, or you're basically trying to go for SOC 2, or you're doing a custom SOC 2, so you can pick and choose which one you need. And each of it has controls and evidence. So if you go into controls, here it tells you what are the controls for certain things. So here, for example, there's a batch job scheduling is restricted to authorized individuals. So that is a control that you have in place to ensure that you're following certain security practices. Similarly, you will have responsible AI program defined. So it also not only tells you what the control is, it also tells you what is the framework of that control. And if you go into, say, job scheduling access, it will tell you that, hey, the test for this particular control is passed, which means that you have provided the evidence and documentation to prove that this is correct. You can then assign this particular control to a specific owner. So there'll be different teams who will be in ownership of certain controls. and you can continue to upload any documentation that you want to upload there as well. And if you go into any of the frameworks, in this case, if you go into this, it gives you the entire control list that is required for a particular framework. So if we go into SOC 2 in our case, it gives you all the controls that are there and employee background checks performed. So how do you validate this? There is a test which is there, and history and comments which are present, which basically take you through the whole process. If you click on the test, it tells you what is the test it's passed, where is the source data from, there is a CSV file, what is the history, how many controls which are there in regards to this, and what is the audits that are there. So in this case, it's basically under tests, it has 70 controls and what audits have happened for this purpose. So you can see that both of these, as Vanta goes through different audit phases, you can mark it as evidence is ready for audit, audit status is in audit, and so on and so forth. And along with controls, you need to have policies in place. So like a code of conduct policy, a human resource security policy. So you have an encryption policy, you'll have all these encryptions, etc. And here you can see that it marks it as okay and approved, or pending approval, needs remediation. And if it needs remediation, it'll tell you what's the status, how to remediate. You can basically click on this and it can potentially provide you certain recommendations. So here you say you don't have an approved asset manager policy yet, so you need to create that asset manager policy. And documents is basically all the different documents that you create, whether it is certain policies, whether it is a channel for whistleblowers, whether it is your status page. So if you have a status page or a website, then that particular application should be having a separate status page, which always shows that it's up or down so that people can just go to that status page and check. So if, for example, GitLab has an issue, there is a status page of GitLab where you can go and check you are having this particular issue going on, and that helps your end customers. So now you understand what I mean by maturity in this case, where because of this maturity which compliance is forcing onto you, you try and ensure your best practices are implemented, and that in turn helps your customers. So imagine if you do not have a status page for GitLab and you don't know it's down or it's up, and is the issue on your internet end or your pipeline end, or it is actually a GitLab issue. You would just be spending time debugging when it's not required.
Right.
And similar to this, you also have your different audits which are going on. So it tells you what audits are ongoing, if there is any evidence which is pending, whether certain things are ready for audit, and if there are any issues which are going to be there, you could basically create an issue and keep that here. And as I was mentioning
So
earlier,
I have
you
one
have,
question.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So regarding that audit, right? So it is something you can schedule it, or it's something it will be in a timely manner that it will start auditing the organization.
For your first
Yes.
audit, you are scheduling it because you need to uh, organize third party auditors who are not directly, who have no conflict of interest, and only they can audit you. So it always has to be a third party auditor who audits you as a proper audit in order for you to get your certification. This audit procedure tells you whether you're ready for that audit or not. Now
Yes.
imagine spending $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 for an auditor, and you're not ready. And then next time when the auditor comes, again you spend another $10,000. Like that doesn't make sense, right? Uh, in certain cases, based on the findings, you are given an opportunity of a certain number of days to remediate those findings, but it is always better to go prepared. So think of it like a school exam. It's better to prepare the first time around than to sit the retest. So going back to that, you basically also have your risk register. So if there are known risks, you have to mention that in your risk register, that this is an issue, this is what you need to do, what is the risk of it, what is the treatment plan for it, how are you hoping to fix this issue, and is it an approved risk or not. So if verbal approval is not counted anymore, there is an accountability associated with it. So whoever approves this particular risk is going to be on the risk register. It's going to show as approved by XYZ, and it's the responsibility of that owner to ensure that either the risk is accepted or the risk is remediated. Similarly, as I was mentioning earlier about the managed vendors, so when you have all these different managed vendors, you want to make sure they are compliant as well, because if they are not compliant, you are not compliant. And this is where the asset inventory was present. So here you have all the different computers which are considered, as well as this is personal computers. So if you have personal computers, it would be shown under computers here, and you can also find those details under personnel. And if you go under computers, it would show up here as well. So it'll tell you which ones are monitored, which ones have the agent on them, what are the whether they have password manager, hard drive is encrypted, antivirus is installed, screen lock is enabled, like things like this, which you need to ensure that your um, employees and all the members of your team are following all these best practices. Now, these are all the different things which Vanta helps you fast forward your entire compliance, and it makes sure that you're ready to go for that audit. But where this whole thing changes is actually leveraging Gen AI in this whole process. So where things would have taken a lot more time, it simplifies your procedure best practices. It simplifies the way you obtain all these different details. So the way that works now, while this is a sandbox, I won't be able to show you exactly everything. um, Under integrations, you can see there are 378 integrations. So that is all the different companies which Quanta supports. So whether you use Figma, you use Confluence, you use Trello, all of it is supported. So you can tie up with it. Basically, using that integration, you're going to connect with your setup, and it will obtain the details for that setup to make sure that those systems are compliant as well. So now we'll go to the final part, the part which you've been waiting for, which is the how does the MCP server work. So you can basically go into your profile, your settings. You then go under developer console, and here you'll create a new Vanta API for manage Vanta. And once you create that, so since this is sandbox, I can't create any such token, but this is how you would go about doing that. Once that is done, we will then show you how the code can be extended as well. Just give us a second. And the other part was, which I did want to mention, was the API docs. So when I was earlier mentioning that the API docs are important, this is what I meant. So you need to check what API reference is available. So if you are, say, create custom control or remove a control or discovered vendors, so all of these things are supported. So based on what APIs are supported, you can extend Vanta rules, but you can't do it beyond what the API supports, at least within the Vanta MCP itself.
Meanwhile, so is there any alternative in the market right now which is working apart from Vanta, which is being used by
Yes.
normal applications?
Yes, there are a couple of different vendors which are there. The most well known are Vanta and Rata. So
Okay.
these two are the two big names in this entire space. But we do have a couple of new ones which are coming into place. Um, let me. I just so it's the name is. Let me just quickly find the name. It's Citel. Uh, let's see. There is Easy Audit, which has come out, and there is Cytale, which is SCYTALE. So you do have competitors who are coming up now with Vanta, Data, etc. And based on what I've noticed, none of these vendors actually have a trial specifically available directly from the UI. You know how a lot of other SaaS based tools
Mm.
have an option of try for 14 days, try for 10 days, try for 2 days. So in this case, what I've noticed when Vanta, Data, you have to book a demo directly with the sales team, and only then you can proceed. So that there, I did notice that, which people may or may not like, but it is what it is. So till um, compliance becomes a bit more democratized, this is going to be a common practice. I think this is also a common practice in this case because mainly it's enterprise vendors, sorry, enterprise clients. So because it's enterprise clients, I think they directly want to book a demo, and there are
Showcase.
showcase the value. Um, but gradually, as I mentioned to you, right, startups, this might change as startups start to embrace compliance.
Mhm.
So as you start seeing more and more smaller companies embracing this for reasons which are valuable to their end users. So, for example, I would feel safer if I knew the client who manages my photographs. For example, say if I'm using, if I'm not using, say, Google Drive or Box, and I'm using a much smaller startup, and I want to know that they follow best practices. I would want to know whether they have SOC 2 compliance. Do they properly protect my photographs, or is it on a public bucket somewhere? So things like that.
Understood. Yeah.
So as time goes by, I think this is going to change. But as of now, because mainly it's enterprise clients, it's directly book a demo. There is no initial trial period or any such thing.
And I think this is uh, ideal because majorly the audit thing is not being taken. Individual will not majorly take a look into that, right? It's like an investment
Absolutely.
thing for an organization like to identify the audit. So I think that is a good for right now. But maybe, as you mentioned, right, for the startup, at least they need to start with that thing as well. So yeah, the later on it will get
Yeah.
more gradually have the more viewers and possibly it will be available for them as well. But yeah, that's a good discussion on the Vanta. You have anything more to share on this?
Yeah. So this is where it goes back to Wanta MCP. So Wanta does not have all these different tools available by default. Um, we have added a lot more additional tools like get security reviews, get integration. So this is not available by the Wanta MCP open source version. This is something which we specifically extended the code for. And similarly, even if you go to get monitored computers, etc., none of this is currently supported. So imagine how easy it is to get an asset inventory from Wanta. So one of the requirements from our clients was we need a asset registry in a document format, like an Excel sheet, with multiple sheets with all the different assets, because that was the auditor's requirement. So the auditors which they used preferred having those physical documents rather than just having it stored in Vanta. So previously if you were just using Vanta, you would have to export individually all these different assets. You would then potentially have to write custom API code in order to do this. But now with that in place, how easy does it become where anyone can easily talk to the MCP server and obtain this information? So as time goes by, this MCP server makes it very simple to manage your compliance, very simple to upload any new documents, very simple to add any information. So as I was showing you earlier, you can also so here you can see it's like get documents, get integration, get, but you can also have upload document, upload the security vendors information, upload this particular information. So whether it is extracting information or putting information into Anta, both of both of it can be simplified to a very large extent, and that is massively going to help users. I think that's mainly it. That's all I wanted to cover as far as Vanta was concerned, compliance is concerned, and how it can help everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, because this is something really help to understand why the compliance is it's required comparatively the scanning. What was my first question for you, right? Because the scanning is also providing some set of security breach what we are doing internally, but apart from that, what we require externally as well. So that's something I think the compliance is giving you the more detailed reports on that line. So I think that's something majorly useful in our environment right now. So that will help with the certified way. So yeah, I think that's a great demo for uh,
I,
yeah.
I do think not just the certified way, but also think about if we were talking about just security scanning. Yes, we do security scanning, but do we ensure all our users reset their passwords every 30 days? Are we dead
Right.
sure that everyone has 2FA enabled? Like things like that only get enforced when you have to go through a compliance phase. You tend to ensure that you go through this process of implementing these best practices, versus if you don't have the compliance, you might kick the can down the road saying that this is not right now a priority, this is something I'll pick up later on. But it was wonderful talking about it, and it's loved your questions, couple. It's perfect use case of how do we explain to different people of why is compliance important, how you can simplify it using certain tooling. Compliance doesn't need to be hard or difficult, and that's pretty much it. So thanks everyone for joining the
Thank
session,
you.
talking about Vanta compliance and how you can leverage the MCP server to fast forward your entire audits and any remediations that are required, or just managing your compliance in a simplistic manner.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining this session. Please drop any feedback or any questions you have. We will answer those and we will get back to you on that line. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.